My name is Zoltan, and I am the inventor of the mathematical English system. And in this short video I try to explain some of the essence of this system. The first thing you have to know that it is truly a system. If you take for example the mouse of a computer, it's not a system. It is a method of doing something. But if you take the software of it, then it is a system. It's a systematic way to do something. What is the difference? Is that the system works for you, and the method, unfortunately, you have to work with. And the first difference between the mathematical English system and all the others, even those who use the name of system, is that essentially they are all methods, and the mathematical English system is a system by itself that works for the student. Okay, now let me explain this in a more visual way. The human mind is a three-dimensional entity, so it thinks only in causality, time and space. In these three things we locate events and we understand. So it's always the same. It's one full complete thought has to contain all this. Now the components of this, that means the words of this, you can number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can number them, so you can symbolize them. So then you don't have to explain all this. Numbers have their own logic, and you symbolize them. And then when the sentence pattern changes, you rearrange the numbers, and through the numbers you can always remember the pattern, how to make sentences. Now this is a thought. This is the method for thinking. But when you have only this to work with and you make a curriculum, then you can only make a method out of it. Why? Because there is nothing systematic in this. Okay, to make a system, what do we need? We need 1, 2 and 3. The 3 levels of human communication. That means these 3 levels that you find in every language, no exception. Why? Because on these 3 levels human mind only is able to communicate verbally. So when you have a curriculum like the mathematical English system that follows the universal human communication in an integrated manner, then you can have all that you can think, limited by all that your language can say, and then you enclose a mental sphere, a mental space, if you want to think that way, and then within it, only within it, all grammatical systems, all languages, all things can exist. It is here where we use a language. This is one part of our mind, the 2 dimensions that limit this kind of space. But of course we have memory also. This is our memory. And when you learn English the traditional way, Then you memorize something, memorize again, memorize the lessons, you memorize all this. In your mind you store them because you know that someday you will need this. And then this is how your English looks like when you essentially doing memory work, because all you have is a method. And from the method you still have to create a language in here, from here, and until your mind systematizes all this and creates a language here, you basically struggle with the language. It's very hard. Until then it's very hard, but once you have this language you can use the language and then you enjoy it. But until then it's quite a burden to learn a language. Now, traditional methods, they teach language like this, and when such a person needs to use language, then he goes from lesson to lesson checking which one is more similar to what he wants to say, so that he can alter it slightly and say it out. Of course, these lessons are not made for you, for your life, for that moment where you are in, so these don't fit your need. That means if your language is present in your mind in this manner, it is useless, and it doesn't matter how much more memory work you do, because it's not going to make you ever speak English unless you create a language in your, this called universal linguistic platform. I named this because I discovered this. This is called the universal linguistic platform. So the mathematical English system builds the language here. How? You take your first lesson, starts right there, and then you go next day to the school, they teach you something else, but the first lesson is in it. Then they teach you something else, but the previous lessons are in it. Then another time, another time, another time, all the lessons contains the previous lessons, and then someday, whatever this, your own language in this system you can think of and express, you can do it in your language, in your second language, meaning English as well. Now, instead of jumping from lessons to lessons, a person who learns the language this way will have only one way to process the language, that is, check the first lesson, whatever he needs from there retain, whatever he doesn't need let go, check the second, third, and check all the lessons, and by the time you finish checking all this, you constructed your speech, because you know what part of the language you need, what part you don't need for that sentence. Here this takes very short time, because more you go in your mind that way, the shorter it becomes. It's like when you run the same way, then after some time it becomes much easier to run, and you can complete it in a shorter time. And here when you fail, you check others, go another way, check, this one also failed, then you start from here, check this, check, and it doesn't work. You don't have a lot of time in a conversation to make your sentences. The people don't wait for you half an hour to say one thing, right?